Am I on?
Yes, you are live.
Okay. I'm going to talk about a method I use to make what I hope are appealing images. Oops, too fast. The goal of the method is to make images that lie somewhere between these two extremes. On the one hand, you have just splashes of color, and on the other, you have the beginnings of possibility of making out recognizable objects or forms. These are two typical images, and later on I'll show a variety of other possibilities that I can create. Okay, so reduced to its essentials, the method is to generate or select a base image and then apply a sequence of transformations to the image. And of course, with such simplicity, the devil is in the details. This method is general. I'm going to talk about an app that I've created to make these images, but the method is completely general, doesn't depend on the app at all. All you need to get started is an image file of any standard type. And then the image transformations can be anything that does something interesting to an image. Okay, for this presentation, I'll give you just a couple of details. The base images will be a variety of types, and I'm going to mainly use images created by an algorithm created some years ago by Gerard Langlais, who was a biochemist and crystallographer. And his program was called Shapes. So that's step one. And step two, the transformations will be those that I've put into my app. And it's important that I point out that the transformations weren't arbitrary. I had to select them and fine tune them by trial and error over a period of actually a couple of years now. Okay, so step one, base images. Here are two images that you can make with Langlais' algorithm. In some cases, they turn out to be linear, like the double fish there on the left. Most of them tend to have radial symmetry, like this one on the right. And you can see even the fish here have these little star kind of configurations in them. They seem to turn up in all Langlais images. Now, to use one of these Langlais images, or in fact any line drawing as a base image, I have to add color. The particular colors are not really that important, but what is important are the number of different colors. The more colors you have, the more my algorithms have to work with. These images were colored by hand, but if you use the right language, you can have the coloring done automatically, at least to the extent of a line, background, and fill color, 3 colors. That's not really terribly exciting. You can kind of see, well, you can certainly see the background and the fill color here. And depending on your screen resolution, you may be able to see green lines kind of snaking through the image. A remarkable thing to me about these two pictures is the fact that they were colored completely automatically. And somehow the guy who invented the algorithm to do this must be a genius, because it correctly filled background and line and fill without any image information about other information about the image. It somehow put the same filled triangles every place around this 5 order symmetry picture. And oops, Got to touch still on it. And somehow it analyzed the picture and did the fills correctly. If you ever look up algorithms for filling a figure, it gets into some fairly hairy mathematics, which I didn't want to get into. So I did that, hand coloring. Okay, still on step one here. There are other types of base images that I use. The one on the left is colored Perlin noise. If you're into computer graphics, you know that Perlin noise is a very handy thing to have when you're trying to create textures like mountains, trees, and so on very quickly and efficiently. I also occasionally use cartoons. This one by my friend and fellow artist, Anna Urson. And I've also found that urban images sometimes work very well, as do certain mathematical curves. This is a recursive curve based on this one little square in the middle, which recursively multiplies itself and gets bigger and bigger, but with the same shape of 4 around the periphery and 1 in the middle. Okay, step 2 are the transformations. Some of these are easy to understand, some of them not so much. As a test case, I'm using this as my base image. It's a checkerboard of sorts. And the first transformation is Cartesian to polar coordinates. You reinterpret the XY coordinates of a picture here as angle and distance from the center. Perhaps it's easiest to understand if you just notice where the black, white, and gray squares end up in the converted image. You can see that this whole gray area gets 90 degrees shifted down into the bottom, and each column of 8 items ends up as a segment of this circle. Okay, using the same base image, you can do the reverse thing, that is, interpret your data as as polar coordinates, angle and radius, and then convert them back to XY, Cartesian. And then again, you can see where those black, white, and gray squares end up. And then finally, this one's a little hard to describe. I call it inversion. And what it does, let me just back up. This is the center of the image. That's important, of the base image. And what this one does is draw an imaginary line out from the center of the base image to a pixel on the periphery, and then simply invert the order of the pixels on each of those lines, so that pixels that were far out in the base image are drawn closer to the center, and vice versa. Images, points near the center get swapped out to nearer the periphery. Now I use another type of transformation, distortions. So the base image for these is, I guess, most easily understood if I use a rectangular grid. The so-called pincushion distortion, you can see, pulls away at the corners of the image, so that in effect part of the image actually in the corners disappears off of the viewing area. The barrel distortion, you can see, kind of pushes out the center of the grid, so you get this kind of a barrel effect. And then the final one I call random sign distortion, where I just you can see, convert the grid lines to these sign-shaped wiggles. And the effect of this distortion is to make your base image flow kind of fluidly all over the image surface. Part of the inspiration for the distortions was this book On Growth and Form by Darcy Thompson, You can see here he took a porcupine fish depicted on regular coordinates, and then he distorted the coordinate system, and what he ends up with is a perfect rendition of the ocean sunfish. So the Darcy-Thompson principle is that the biological forms are shaped by the underlying physical forces that create them. And what he uses, what I use, is point-to-point geometric transformations, which is what the various distortions are. Every point here is moved to the corresponding point over here on the right. Okay, now I'd like to just show some finished examples that are produced by my app. And again, these images could be produced without my app. It's just my app codifies and makes accessible to me my particular procedure. So it's a convenience, but not in any way essential to the process of making these images. Okay, that's one set. Another set. This one has several long lay images that have been dispersed around the image surface. Now, with my procedure and with my app, I can make wallpaper patterns, these very repetitive patterns. But I have to admit that my procedure and my app are not the best tool for making patterns if this is, what you're after. There's a much better program that's called Symmetry Mill that's made by the Artlandia company. It has all 17 unique wallpaper patterns, and I found you can play with this thing for hours. You can get addicted with it. It's so much fun. But if that's what you want to do, then my procedure is not the way to go. Okay, just quickly though, the app's features. It has these various built-in facilities. I can generate images. I have already prepared base images like photos and drawings. There are 56 functions that I can generate new step 2 algorithms with. And there are 32 preset algorithms. These are processes that by a long experience I know produce pretty good results automatically. I guess the key to all this is that most of the algorithms and functions take one or more random inputs, and each random input is allowed to vary within limits that I know produce satisfactory results. It took a while to find out what those upper and lower limits would be, but once I found one, I incorporated it into one of these 32 presets. Here's the app interface, which again is not the essence of the project. It just makes things easier for me. Over here, I have a set of 32 buttons that I can click on, and it automatically brings up one of these algorithms that I know produces pretty good results. And the ones that are in yellow, I know work really well and require almost no effort on my part to get a nice image. Okay, again, the app is not essential to my method. It's a codification of my practice. If someone wanted to do more or less the same thing, but not in my programming language, which happens to be MATLAB, Python is a pretty good choice. It's free, And there are some nice packages for images and signal processing that are very useful if you want to take my approach. The reason I chose MATLAB, is that it's easy to create an app with it. The app interface, I did this all with drag and drop. I didn't have to program that at all. I just dragged in these buttons, these numeric entry fields, text entry fields, and so on. And I was done with the making the interface. Also, I chose MATLAB because it has an extensive set of image and signal processing operations they call toolboxes, which go together seamlessly with the main MATLAB interpreter. The downside is that MATLAB isn't free. I think it costs maybe about $300 US to set yourself up with MATLAB and my app. Okay, it's just some quick observation conclusions. This is actually in the form of an argument. The first two lines here, I would say, are the premises. What I do is a form of painting, and all the images I generate are abstract. And from these two premises, I reached the conclusion that the viewer's experience depends on form and color, that the images are, generally speaking, decorative, and the images exist on one level. They're not like the Mona Lisa, where you have to look at the figure's smile and recognize why the background on one side of Mona is different from the background on the other side. You know, what messages is the artist incorporating by all of those features? You look at my images, you like them, you don't like them. There they are, as they say, on one level. That's it. Thank you very much.
You can ask.
Thank
you.
We just caught the end of the applause then in Berlin. Sorry, it wasn't fast enough with my mouse button. Are there any questions online or in Berlin, in Barcelona or Linz? If not, I'm kind of interested, Stuart, in how you got here, how long you have been exploring this practice, and if it's not too long a story, kind of what kind of steps you've taken to get to this?
I can give you the short version.
Yep.
I went to school as an undergraduate to be a music major, and while I was being a music major, I heard about computer music for the first time, and I decided to try to make a little bit of computer music. I learned how to program in Fortran, and then for years and years, that's where I kind of left it. But I retained an interest in computers. And then when PCs became widely available, I saw, gee, I can do a whole bunch of interesting things with vision, with images here. And so I started playing around with that on a future website, which is not what's under construction. I'll show some early images as well as some recent ones. And the final thing was I attended a conference for the APL programming language in 1993, and Gerard Langlais made this fascinating presentation about all the images he could make with this actually quite compact algorithm. So I started playing with that, and then maybe about 10 years ago, I made a connection to Anna Urson, who is at University of Northern Colorado, and she is head of the computer and digital arts unit, and she's professor of art. And I showed her some of my stuff, and I said, is this computer art? And she didn't say yes or no, but she said, keep doing it. And that's pretty much what I've done. I've been putting together the pieces of the app that I showed for about, I don't know, 8 or 10 years. And as I mentioned in my talk, the hard part was finding the right parameters for each of the functions so that you don't get images that are just all over the place, a mess, but look interesting and pleasing.
Lovely. Thanks for filling us in on that. So yes, lovely to have you back at the Algorithmic Pattern Conference, and look forward to see the next iterations. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So